Hello everyone, this is Nemernan, and today we'll be covering MPL 12 Week 7. So, as you see on the usage charts, this is not updated to Week 7, it's updated up to Week 6, which is kind of ideal for not giving us any spoilers for what's going to happen this week, but it does mean that a lot of what was covered in last week's little stat review is probably going to be the same for this week as well. Although that was being updated live while I was recording, so I'll just do a rough overview of all the stats again, just in case maybe some things changed while I was looking. So, first thing of note, those mid-tier types, ground, fighting, and fire, are all doing yet again, the sheet is getting live updated. I have terrible timing with this, but yeah. The sheet is getting updated live right now by the person who runs it. So, before things get too out of hand, let's go review what we do see right now. So, ground, fighting, and fire are doing relatively well. They were all 66% win rate, but yeah, that changed a little bit just now. But yeah, to be reassuring, these types are doing very well in this tournament right now. Fire has won over half of its games, which is very impressive, considering that this was a type that was thought to be overhyped in MWP, but now it looks like it's coming back with a vengeance, and maybe we may or may not see some action in the future being taken on it. Whether it comes to Heat Rock or banning specific Pokemon, we do not know, but it does seem like Fire is back in shape relatively. It's still not being brought as much as the very meta types, but it does seem to be picking up a lot of traction, and it is winning. That is the most important thing. It is winning, and it is doing well, because in NWP it didn't do too well, but it is winning and doing well this tournament, so yeah. Speaking of usage, Dragon completely dominating it, and it's almost not even close. Dark and Steel and Flying all have a somewhat equal usage, with Flying obviously being notoriously not doing well this tournament. Steel also seeming to be underperforming a little bit as well, while Dark is still relatively consistent. And also, interestingly enough, Dragon is also underperforming, but I wonder how much of that is because of Dragon Mirrors. Not exactly sure. We have had quite a few Dragon Mirrors this tournament though, so I'm not sure how much that factors into things, but yeah. Dragon is not doing too hot, but it's still one of the most popular types because it is just that oppressive, and it is a really strong type and a hard type to prep for certain types. Dark does have one of the more favorable matchups, which is why Dark is 52% win rate right now, but your better bet is obviously some of these other types like Water, Ground, Fighting, and Fire, who have, as Fentry mentioned, has good matchups into the type. Okay, and now Fire just changed its win rate, so yeah. But yeah, with that being said, even though the stats are being updated as we speak, the facts still remain the same that these types are just, or Dragon is just getting it prepped for very well, while Dark is in the corner just kind of doing its thing very well and kind of slipping under the radar, I think. I mean, obviously it's not slipping under the radar because it's this almost the second most used type in the entire tournament, but it is very much a type I don't see heavy prep for, and stuff like Burloom on Fighting is only a more recent thing that people have been doing to try and counter Dark a little bit. I wouldn't say Dark is under prepped for, but I think in comparison to Dragon, the hoops you have to go around to deal with Dark as opposed to Dragon is, I would say, night and day. And that's just due to Dragon just having a very strong defensive core that is really tough to break. Dark doesn't have that issue because it's more of an offensive type, but breaking Tinglu is something that does need to be addressed, but it usually isn't that hard to break through it with a generally decent team. Especially since Tinglu doesn't have any recovery, and is a relatively weakness-ridden mon, I would say. So, yeah, it's very hard to, comparatively, Dragon is just a lot hard to prep for, because you need very specific counters to both Hisui and Gudra and Archaludon, but yeah. So with that being said, I won't review Mons. I think I'll review Mons during the semifinals video, so that way we can have like a better idea of what's going on. And I might make a midway video just covering the end of the playoffs, since the playoffs are technically over as of this video, and technically semifinals is almost ending right now, so yeah. I'll probably make another video, maybe release it on Tuesday or Wednesday, talking about just what the playoffs are telling us and what we should look out for in the semis. I don't think I'll have a guest speaker on for that video, but that could change. I'm not sure. We'll see in the future. Very tentative. But yeah. Yes, that's our updating, but we'll just move on to the first game. So we have Luzin versus Froll, and Luzin is opting for a Steel team, while Froll is opting for a Fairy team. Not the Double Water Core, interestingly enough, and he's also bringing Galarian Weezing, which is not something normally brought, as well as Comfey, who is a very rare mon to be bringing on Fairy, especially in this setting. On preview, though, this is a Scizor Steel team versus Fairy. I don't think it's going to look good for our friend Froll here, but let's see how this goes. Arcaludon is led off as Froll leads with Fluttermane. Fluttermane instantly going to threaten out the Arcaludon. Excuse me, the Choice Specs, the Shadow Ball goes through and does quite a bit of damage to Heatran. Very brave staying in by Froll there with the Shadow Ball. Guess he doesn't expect Luzin to have Heavy Slam or anything of the sort. Keeps spamming Shadow Ball and weakening Heatran, and Luzin doesn't really have a good switch-in to the Shadow Balls. Unfortunately, he gets a couple bad rolls, and the Protect does allow Luzin to live there. But Heatran is now greatly weakened, and now Primarina can kind of just take a chunk out of Luzin's team with the right setup. Here we have Neutralizing Gas revealed. I am very curious what the Neutralizing Gas is meant to... Oh, and that is a good usage for it right there. The Flamethrower denying the Heatran from blocking the Flamethrower. Very well done by Froll. Unfortunately, Comfey will come in to do absolutely nothing and get one-hit KO'd by Make It Rain. But Klefki now comes in and sets up the screens. Primarina now poised to do a lot of damage, even dodging the Thunder Wave. Calm Mind up. Thunder Wave now finally connecting, as we see another Calm Mind go through. This is looking very scary for Luzin, as Primarina behind these screens with 2 Calm Mind boosts is definitely extremely scary. So we do see Skarmory get knocked down to its 30. Whirlwind is going to go through though, and that will save Luzin from possibly getting swept, as we see Arcaludon coming back in, losing its leftovers from Froll's knockoff, as we see Froll once again swap into Klefki. Klefki tanking the body press relatively easily. Skarmory now going to come in, probably going to look for a couple of Roosts, as we see Weezing come in again. Roost does go through, and we see Goldengo come in this time. Flamethrower is going to go through, as we see Weezing swap out and Klefki come back in. Hex is going to be used, and that will KO Klefki, and that will mean no more screens for the rest of the game. Iron Valiant will come back in, but will Froll get this read? He will not, as we see a defense boost on the Arcaludon. Iron Valiant getting chipped down very, very slowly, as he does do a lot of damage with the close combat. Not enough to KO, though, as we do see Arcaludon get the body press off, but come just short of KOing it as well. Froll 1 finishing him off, but also KOing Iron Valiant in the process, as we see Weezing come back out again. Getting paralyzed, and we do see the Flamethrower go through. Froll is in a really, really rough spot here, as we see the Will-O-Wisp go through, and because Good's Gold is disabled, it's very easy for Froll to get that off, as we see now Primarina is the last mon, but it is paralyzed, so Yellow Magic is not going to be in Froll's favor here, as we do see the Hex do a ton of damage through the Calm Mind, and Froll forfeits, knowing what is going to come next. So with that being said, well played to Froll, actually. This was really close considering the matchup. Scizor didn't even make an appearance this entire game, but yeah, the Neutralizing Gas Weezing actually did quite a bit of work. It tricked the Heatran into KOing itself, And also denied Goldega from stopping the burn. If only he was able to get that done earlier, it could have had a bigger impact on the game overall. With that being said, though, still well played considering the matchup. Unfortunately, Comfy didn't get to really do anything, but I assume Comfy was probably bought just to guarantee a couple of matchups specifically against Dark, since Dark really, really can't deal with that bond. So, yeah. Dragon also, Loki, can't really deal with that bond. Although they do have Hisui and Gudra, so Hisui and Gudra probably could deal with this, but I would say the others, not so much. The other Monotype Dragon would definitely suffer a lot from even one combined on Comfy, but yeah. Let's move on to the next match, as we see Clean versus Adjustments. Clean opting for an Electric team, and Adjustments opting for a Psychic team. Talk about an unusual matchup in MPL. But yeah, we see Clean operating a Electric team with Thunderous, Therian. I think I might have this team. I'm not 100% sure. I think I do have this team, so I'm a little familiar about the sets that are going to be run in this matchup. I'm not going to leak anything, though, because that is bad sportsmanship, and also just really kind of not cool, so won't say anything about that. Adjustments, this team, however, is not a team I have, but it is one I'm relatively familiar with. Actually, wait, this might be a team I have, too. These are two teams I have that I'm actually getting to see live in a game of Monotype. I'm not going to show either team, by the way. I'm still not allowed to do that. But, yeah. It's so hard to commentate this knowing the sets now, because I'm used to the not knowing what the sets are, but now that I know, it's going to be kind of difficult. But we'll just, I'll try and be as unbiased as possible while reviewing this game. So, but yeah, the matchup looks like it's going to be... There's no Psychic Spam on the side of Adjustments. It looks like it is going to be potentially a Trick Room setup, since he does have the Hatterin and a bunch of slower Mons. While Clean is looking like he's going for a very strange offense playstyle with no hazards and Thunderous as well. Going to be a secondary physical attacker, it looks like, so let's see how this goes. So, Iron Hands is going to be leading off into Adjustments as Latios. Latios is going to do a Luster Purge into Magnezone, but Magnezone will take very little damage, as it is a Steel type. Unfortunately, it will get the Spadef drop, but that will not matter much, as Magnezone will swap out with Volt Switch. Volt Switch will send in Thunderous, as Adjustments will take a hefty knockoff from the Clean's Thunderous, as we see another knockoff. Oh, this is the team, unfortunately. So, the Slowbro is itemless, which means that Slowbro will not be taking a lot of damage from knockoff, and will be slacking off all that HP, as we see Hoopa now come in. Magnezone is going to swap into Thunderous, as Thunderous will use Acrobatics. Look at that damage is definitely itemless Acrobatics, by the way. There's no way that it's not itemless, but we are going to see another Volt Switch by the Magnezone, slowly chipping away at a scene. Thunderous is going to come back out, as we see another Acrobatics. Once again, getting blanked by the Slowbro completely. It looks like Clean may lack an electric move on the Thunderous, which is going to be very unfortunate. As we do see yet another Volt Switch, a crit this time around. Thunderous is going to come in again, but... Oh, this time Adjustment stays in. And we do see the Acrobatics get a KO on the Thunder, or on the Meloetta. Raging Bolt now comes in. Looking to be very scary here, as we do see a Thunderbolt. The critical hit only doing 31%. Very bulky Hoopa set right here, as the knockoff will get the KO on Magnezone, revealing its Assault Vest, which explains a lot. Slowbro is going to come into the Thunderous to once again check it, as we see Raging Bolt come back out. Body Press going to do a decent amount of damage to the Raging Bolt, a whopping 39% with that critical hit, as we see Hoopa tank a Thunderbolt, probably the last Thunderbolt it can take from the Raging Bolt, as the knockoff will do a lot of Rotom's HP. Psychic Noise going to... Also, fun fact about Heal Block, by the way. Pain Split actually goes through Heal Block. I'm not sure who needs to know that, but that is actually a thing. I had it happen to me in the game. But yeah, Pain Split is not affected by Heal Block, so keep that in mind. But yeah, Raging Bolt is going to keep trying to do as much damage as possible to Adjustments' team, but will fall to the Metagross. Thundurus is going to come out as the knockoff goes through. Slowbro is going to just tank it very easily. No burn, thankfully, on the Thundurus, but Raikou will now come out. On the Slowbro Slack Off. Raikou going to Substitute now. Are we going to see a Calm Mind? Yep, we are going to see a Calm Mind. Ooh, and Adjustments has to be very careful here because with pressure, yeah, Raikou is going to quickly make Adjustments run out of PP for Luster Purge. So if Adjustments is choice, he is actually forced out here as Slowbro now comes in. Substitute will be used again, and Adjustments may be in a very rough spot here as Thundurus is going to come out. Thunderbolt will go through on the Raikou as Leftovers is going to heal it back a little bit. Draco Meteor will be unfortunately missing. Thunderbolt going to do 38%. As we see another Draco Meteor come through, are we going to see another substitute? Nope. We're going to see a Thunderbolt go through instead. Maybe Clean will go for a substitute here. No, he goes for another Thunderbolt and gets the one-hit KO on Slowbro. Trick is used, and now Raikou cannot do its thing anymore, or it can't substitute, and also lost its leftover, so it has very little sustain, but unfortunately that will not matter, as Raikou just does too much damage with the +2, and that will be the victory for Clean, and Electric's first W. Let's go. Alright. For this to be the team, me knowing what this team is makes this very difficult to say without giving anything away, but yes. We do see that the Raikou is a substitute Combine set, very akin to the substitute Combine sets of Suicune in past generations, but this time it's on Electric, and Raikou kinda does it decently. It's not as good as Suicune, obviously, because it's nowhere near as bulky, but it can do it somewhat well into the right situations. That being said, Clean is extremely brave for bringing a set like this into a dragon-filled metagame, since the set doesn't really do well against dragon types, but I don't know. I don't know what the plan was against dragon for this team, to be honest, but I'm happy to see Electric get a W, even if it was against another low-tier type like Psychic, but sometimes you take those Ws where you can. And the Psychic team wasn't even that bad either. It was just very unfortunate that that team's one of those teams' weakness is how strong Electric Spam is against the type, since it lacks a ground type, and it also just doesn't have a lot of good switch-ins to strong electric type attacks, outside of the 2 Assault Vest users that it had, so yeah. That being said, let's move on to the next match. As we see Leafy and Lull versus Chaitanya. Leafy and Lull is opting for a Breloom fighting team, as Chaitanya is instead opting for a relatively, actually not really that standard, but a common dragon team with double Lottie twins. Kyurem also rounding out the terrible 3, as we do see, once again, the Breloom on the side of Leafy and Lull. Very interested to see how this game goes. Breloom instantly leads off as we see the Psychic go through. Leafy and Lull looking for a Spore immediately as we reveal the... Oh, and we're going to go for a Mach Punch as well. Mach Punch will get Latios down a little bit, but not quite to KO range for anything notable at the moment. As we do see the Night Slash come through on Gallade. Sacred Sword going to do a ton of damage to Archaludon, as the Stealth Rocks will go through from the side of Chaitanya. Sacred Sword will get rid of the Archaludon. Gallade not even shrugging a bit of HP away, as Breloom will be sacrificed to the rocks, and Dragapult will reveal its Will-O-Wisp, as we see Iron Valiant come out to try and punish. And Dragapult will get KO'd by the Choice Scarf Iron Valiant. Goodra now coming in to check the Iron Valiant, as Dragon Tail will unfortunately miss. Chaitanya switches into Latios, but Latios will take a hefty amount from the close combat from Urshifu, as the Aqua Jet from Leafy Lull goes through and sacks Urshifu in the process, but does get Latios very low. As the follow-up Moonblast will get the KO on Latios. Goodra is not going to come in, and Iron Hands this time will answer the Goodra, as the Heavy Slam will do very little damage. Kyurem comes in, as we see the Iron Hands very safely and easily Drain Punch it. If this Iron Hands is also Shuka Berry, this is quite literally just going to be a free W for Leafy and Lull, as the Drain Punch will knock down the substitute. Yep, and it is Shuka Berry, so there is just nothing to worry about ever. It does get a Spadef drop, which is going to be important for Latias, but we will see how much that will matter, as we do see Latias still asleep from the Spore, so he got an unlucky 3-turn sleep, but we do finally see the Psychic come through, and that will get the KO on Iron Hands. As Gallade now comes out, but I think Gallade will just be enough to get this victory, as Latias will not do enough damage, and Goodra will also not do enough damage, but it doesn't matter because Gallade is faster anyway. And with that, Leafy and Lull wins this match. Once again, a loss from Dragon due to fighting, because as Spencer said, fighting just has a good matchup into Dragon. Even with double Lottie Twins, Leafy and Lull was just able to do what he needed to get his win conditions in the places they needed to be. The Choice Scarf, Iron Valiant just doing so much work against the entirety of the Dragon team, and Gallade knocking down Archaludon that early, also making it extremely easy for Iron Valiant to just make progress against that team. So yeah, well played to Leafy and Lull. But let's move on to the next match. Dugtrio's Broken versus Rio Vidal will be happening, as we see Dugtrio's Broken bringing a Ghost team again, also featuring Mimikyu, while Rio Vidal is opting for a Walking Wake Overpawn Water team. Very interesting balance team from Rio Vidal. I'm very interested to see how this works. Yeah, not really many notes, just can't wait to see how this works, but Suian Samura and Greninja are going to have to do some heavy lifting against this Ghost team, because otherwise this Ghost team may be a very big issue, because there aren't a lot of things that are going to stop Fluttermane and Spectreer's Onslaught. Oh, and also Bramblegast is a big problem as well, but that goes without saying. Bramblegast will lead off immediately into Rio Vidal's Greninja, as Bramblegast will get immediately Dark Pulse to brought down to its Sash. Power Whip will connect and get a critical hit. That crits, very, very likely it mattered. But that Ceaseless Edge is also going to extremely matter, as now Dugtrio's Broken gets a spike that he otherwise really should not have against the Rio Vidal's team. And Rio Vidal does not seem to have hazard removal, so this is a very big problem for them. We are going to see the Dragapult to come in and substitute on the Toxapex, who fails a Toxic. Swampert is going to come in now, as the Will-O-Wisp goes through. Sub-Wisp Hex on the Dragapult, very likely, as we do see the Hex come through, doing a 35% to the Swampert. Knockoff still doing a bit of damage, or enough damage to break the substitute. As we do see excuse me, sorry, I'm stuttering. Stealth Rock does come through from the Swampert. Another Hex goes through. Once again, Knockoff breaks the sub. As we do see Cerulite swap it immediately. Yes, Dugtrio's Broken was looking to get a cheesy proc of weak armor to go through, as the Bitter Blade will finish off Swampert relatively easily. Ogerpon Wellspring going to come in now, but Bitter Blade will do quite a bit of damage to it. Not quite enough to put it back to Sash, but actually no, it doesn't even have Sash, it was Balloon, my bad. But yeah, Fluttermane will come in as the Thunderbolt will go through. Swampert is no longer on the field, so this is kind of free, but Walking Wake is actually able to tank it relatively well. So Hydro Pump will get the KO. Dragapult now comes in. The Dragon Darts, so it's Sub-Wisp Hex Dragon Darts. Okay. Yeah, that's a very annoying set to have to play around, but Dragapult will get KO'd by the Hisui and Samura. Mimikyu now coming in, but here's the issue. Yes, the Toxapex is going to come in, and Play Rough will not get the KO on Toxapex, and Mimikyu is slowly wearing itself down. This is the big issue with Mimikyu, is that it just isn't strong enough to break down some of these walls, even with Swords Dance. So Spectrier is going to have to come in, but does Real Vidal read it? They do not. As we see the haze go through instead. Substitute is used, and once again Real Vidal gets blocked from using Toxic. As we see the Will-O-Wisp come through on the Spectrier. Will Spectrier be able to get this KO though? Depends on if it has Draining Kiss or not. It does not use Draining Kiss, even if it did have it. As we see, oh, Mimikyu is going to tank the Ceaseless Edge. Although that does put it into KO range of Toxic now. As the burn will not KO. Spectrier, looks like the Samurott might be Scarf too, yeah. So Spectrier will fall to the Samurott, and there we go. Real Vidal does take the victory. Very close match though. Very close match considering Real Vidal got a little bit unlucky with having a spike to deal with the entire game. But they played around it relatively well, and made sure Samurott was healthy enough to sweep Dugtra's Working's team. The hazard stack is just too powerful for Ghost to deal with, but it was still concerningly close considering how disadvantaged Real Vidal was by that early spike. And also losing Greninja extremely early, that should also be noted. But yeah, very impressive stuff. Cannot wait to see what happens next. As we head into Lithium Z versus Hammy. Lithium Z is opting for a Steel team, and Hammy is opting for a Ground team. Now, Hammy should have the W here just on preview, since I'm very much assuming that that is Gravity Landorus. But we have seen this matchup get very close before, so anything can happen. Let's see how this goes. Alright, we instantly lead off with Landorus, and we are instantly just playing the game into Gravity Simulator. As we see the Earth Power 2-hit KO Goodra, that's the power of Life Orb. Earth Power right there is just way too strong. As we see Landorus get swapped out for Hippowdon, the eject button getting removed instead of proccing, which is very unfortunate for not Lithium Z, for Hammy. Hammy really wanted that free pivot. But we do see the Gravity come through again. Hammy is forced out, sadly, due to Ice Spinner being present. But now the balloon is not going to do anything, by the way. It says it's up, but it's actually not up when Gravity is active. As the Headlong Rush will come through and do quite a bit of damage to Archaludon. Subsequent Headlong Rush will get the KO, as Lithium Z is struggling to make any good progress against Hammy's team, just due to the power of this Landorus. The Psychic does come through, but now Hammy's in a bit of an awkward spot as Hippowdon comes in. Takes the Ice Spinner relatively well, but Lithium Z will now swap into Skarmory and start getting some business done. Hippowdon will heal itself to full, but Skarmory only interestingly uses Body Press. I guess he was reading the Whirlwind as Heatran is brought out. Skarmory is brought back out as Cloudsire is swapped in from Hammy. Hammy immediately goes back into Landorus as a spike goes down. Iron Treads is put back in, and Earth Power is used again. Very safe play by Hammy there, as he knows that if he uses Earth Power there, he doesn't have to worry about Skarmory coming in, because if Skarmory comes in, he gets a free Gravity, because Skarmory can't really do much to him, so yeah. But yeah, once again, we're going to see this in action again. Body Press goes through, doesn't do that much damage. And Landorus is just going to get free KOs here, as Lithium Z. Actually, this is Choice Scarf Heatran, I believe, so he's going to still swap out to respect that. As we see the Flamethrower, not the Overheat this time, the Flamethrower goes through, getting the 2-hit KO on Hippowdon. But yeah. We are going to see a subsequent KO, and Skarmory is going to be the last bastion to deal with Hammy's team. But unfortunately, yes, the crit will not go through, and the Earth Power will seal the deal. Now, we have seen this matchup get close before, and it looked like a complete stomp, but Lithium Z did play as best as they could in that position, trying to make use of his Iron Treads and the Ice Spinner as much as he could, but unfortunately, there's just, once Gravity is put down, it's very hard for Steel to play into that. So think something he could have done was maybe have Caesar on the team, so that way he could have done something against the Landers specifically, since he could have chipped it down a little bit easier and put it in range of either Iron Treads or even Goldango. But yeah, it's just unfortunate. But yeah, move on to the next match. Fusion versus Azir Iggy. Fusion opting for a fairy team with a double water core, as Azir Iggy is opting for flying with the Articuno Dragonite Enamorous core. No Skarmory, so that's very cool, but that does mean that we are either going to be seeing spikes on the Gliscor, or we may see no spikes at all. Very much depends on what Azir Iggy chooses to do here, so let's take a look and let's see what happens. We see Azumarill instantly lead in as the Gliscor comes through. Knockoff is used as Rocky Helmet gets knocked off from the Corviknight. Aqua Jet is used, and Azir Iggy will actually proc the Citrus Berry immediately on Fusion's Azumarill. That is not what we want to see this early into the game, as Fusion reads the Roost and does a very bold Belly Drum. Play Rough will do a big chunk of damage to the Corviknight, but it will not do enough to KO, as we do see the Corviknight perish. Or not perish, just swap out into the Landorus, and Landorus just gets completely obliterated by the Moonblast, by the way. As we see another Moonblast go through. Special attack gets lowered, but not too big of a deal for Articuno as it swaps out with U-turn. Gliscor proccing its Toxic Orb, and now we see Iron Valiant come out. The Earthquake going through and only doing a little less than half. Swords Dance on the predicted Protecta, very well played by Fusion, as we are going to see the Corviknight get KO'd. Enamorous is now going to come in. Shadow Sneak will do a whopping 55% to the Enamorous, as Enamorous will get the Revenge KO with Earth Power. Fluttermane is going to come in now, as Dragonite tanks the Moonblast, but not very well, as the subsequent one will kill, and due to Fluttermane being immune to Extreme Speed, there's just not much Dragonite can do there. Moonblast does come through onto Articuno, but Articuno is able to tank it relatively well, and will start roosting. The only issue is, does Fusion have enough Moonblast uses to wear down all of Articuno's Roost PP? Fusion opts to not do that, and Azir Iggy does the safe thing and tries to go for a Freeze Dry instead of roosting again. Klefki does come in and get his Reflect off, but Primarina is immediately put in, losing its choice specs very unfortunately. But if Primarina has Psychic Noise, this will not be a problem whatsoever. We see the Flip Turn instead, and Hatterene will come out instead. U-turn is used by the Articuno and brings in Gliscor, but Hatterene is pretty much immune to most of Gliscor's nonsense due to Magic Bounce, so we are going to see the Swords Dance come through. Psychic Noise is going to get used, and it will block the healing from Toxic Orb. This is very big. As the Trick Room read into the Protect. Ooh. Fusion is playing very well this game, as we see another heal block go through with the Psychic Noise. Trick Room going to make sure that Hatterene goes first this time around. Will he do another Calm Mind? No. He's going to try and go for a Draining Kiss this time around. Heal block, it goes off, but unfortunately will not be enough, as we do see the Draining Kiss come through this time. Healing Hatterene to full. See another Calm Mind, but Haze will just go through and completely negate Fusion's boosts. So we see a Freeze Dry go through, another Trick Room used by Fusion happening, as a Calm Mind gets used again. Haze once again goes through, completely stopping the boosts, as Fusion seems to be adamant on making sure that he gets as many boosts as possible. A Psychic Noise gets used, Articuno now in a dangerous spot, as it is blocked from healing. So Fluttermane can now come in, and yes, Azir Iggy realizes the danger he is in and immediately tries to swap out, but Fluttermane should get a KO here. Oh, never mind. The Enamorous uses its last dying wish to bring Gliscor back to full HP, and now it can proc its Toxic Orb again and get that healing. The Moonblast still doing a big chunk to the Gliscor though, so maybe it can do a KO. Probably not. But the odds are definitely not in Azir Iggy's favor. And yeah, the subsequent one will KO. Which means Articuno is the last bastion, but Articuno can only take 40% up from those Moonblasts, which means that at 38%, Fusion will be able to get the KO, and therefore the victory against Azuriki. Very powerful showing from Fusion this game. Very aggressive plays, very good reads, very bold plays as well. He played as extremely aggressive against this flying team, because the big mistake people do tend to make against teams like this is that they won't play aggressive and they'll just try and play super safe against these types of teams. But the problem is that teams like this feast upon people who play safe and play like non-progressively. So playing aggressively like this is a very good example of how you can beat teams like this on the ladder. So if you're struggling with that, just take notes from Fusion here. Just make very aggressive plays. Sometimes it'll work out, sometimes it won't, but it's better to play aggressively and try to make that progress happen instead of just slowly lose and just waste not only your own time, but also just your elo as well. So, yeah, very well played by Fusion. Let's move on to the next match. As we see No Name 6293 up against Vadum, and No Name will be bringing a flying team with Zapdos, while Vadum will be bringing a flying team with Tornadus Therian. Both have double Iron Birds. I pray that one of these guys has the anti-flying Dragonite set, because we are probably going to be here for a while. Yeah, no, we're going to be here for a while. Oh boy. Alright, strap yourselves in for this one. Alright, both sides lead off with Gliscor. Vadum goes with the Protect, as No Name goes for the knockoff. Fortunately, it gets blocked by Protect. As we see a Sword Stance go through on Vadum's side, knockoff will get used and remove the Rocky Helmet from Skarmory, as Stealth Rock is used by No Name. Knockoff goes through again, but Iron Defense will be used by No Name. It looks like Vadum will be forced to swap into the Tornadus, who reveals to not be Heavy Duty Boots and will likely be Assault Vest. Gliscor now comes in, easily tanking the Heat Wave and healing with Poison Heal. U-turn will come through, and we're going to probably see a knockoff from the Gliscor here. Nope, instead we see a Sword Stance, as the knockoff will do a decent chunk of Corviknight's HP, but the Defog will get rid of the rocks. Corviknight losing its leftovers is definitely not good news for Vadum whatsoever. More Sword Stance boosts on Gliscor, also very much not good news, as we see the U-turn go through, and Dragonite gets brought in. It looks like this Dragonite might have Ice Spinner with the way that it was postured by Vadum. Yep, there's the Ice Spinner. Looks like it might be Choice Band damage. I could be wrong, but yeah. So we are going to have, so one of them is going to be capable of breaking through this ice, or through this flying team. So we may not be here for as long as I thought, but it's still probably going to be a lengthy match, as we see both sides get Stealth Rock up, and Iron Defense is used by No Name Skarmory. The Body Press is used, and U-turn goes through from Vadum's Corviknight into the Tornadus Therian. Skarmory is not at full HP, so it cannot survive the Heat Wave, as Gliscor does heal from the Heat Wave. Protect is used, but Bleakwind Storm will get blocked by said Protect. Vadum is going to use U-turn into the Skarmory. What will No Name do? No Name will go for the knockoff and remove the Rocky Helmet, making it safe for physical attackers to hit Skarmory. Now we see a hard Zapdos swap in to the Skarmory Roost. Gliscor is now going to come out. A Hurricane, doing quite a bit of damage to Vadum, but not enough, as we do see the substitute on the Protect prediction. Hurricane going through yet again, and also connecting, as knockoff will not do enough damage to KO the Zapdos substitute. Protect is used again, and it looks like we are going to see a stall off. Yeah, Hurricane's going to miss this time as the knockoff goes through, but this does look like it is going to be a stallier Zapdos. Actually, I need to check its ability. Yes, that Zapdos is pressure, so it is going to be probably a sub-roost set, as the Iron Defense goes through on Skarmory. Tornadus Therian once again coming in, as No Name gets 35% of its HP off, as Corviknight will be swapped in. Heat Wave going to do a decent amount of damage to the Corviknight, but not quite enough to 2-hit KO, as Knockoff will get rid of the Corviknight's leftovers, and No Name heals his Corviknight with Roost. U-Turn is used by Vadoom again, as we see Gliscor come out once again. U-Turn is used by No Name, and Dragonites will this time come out. Vadoom is probably fearing Ice Spinner, so we're going to see Vadoom swap out. We see Thunder Punch, and yeah, it looks like No Name is also the Flying Killer Dragonite set. A Body Press will get the first KO of this game at turn 34. Or not turn 34. Yes, turn 34. But yes, the U-turn will now go through on the Gliscor on Vadoom's side, as Dragonite will come out. That Dragonite is definitely Choice Band, so Gliscor reveals the choice of Ice Spinner from Vadoom, but can Skarmory take it? No, it cannot, and No Name knows this, so he offers to sack his Zapdos. And a Namorous will now come in to Revenge Kill. Corviknight is sent in by Vadoom to deal with the Enamorous, as we do see the Enamorous get stopped by the Corviknight. Corviknight opting to U-turn out, though, instead of heal, which will lead to another Dragonite swap-in. Dragonite going to use Fire Punch and get a ton of damage off on the Corviknight. Vadoom going to... It looks like Vadoom is opting to just use Dragonite as offensively as possible and Healing Wish the Dragonite up once he's at too low of an HP. We are going to see Tornadus do a lot of Heat Waves on the Corviknight, but Corviknight will be able to outstall it due to Roost and its pressure, lowering Heat Waves PP to 12, I believe. Oh, not even 12. It's just going to be 8, so yeah. Vadoom is losing that Heat Wave PP, though, and once he loses that Heat Wave PP, Corviknight and Skarmory can both sit on the Smog. So Vadoom has to be very careful about his Heat Wave uses from now on, as the Swords Dance will go through on No Name's Swords Dance, or Gliscor, sorry. Gliscor going to get a KO on Corviknight, second one on Vadoom's team down. We're going to see a Dragonite come in again, and once again, Dragonite is going to look very scary with the Ice Spinner. Who is No Name going to send in to deal with this? It's Skarmory, but Skarmory will get KO'd. Ooh, doesn't get KO'd, but fortunately, still way too weak to be brought in again. So Enamorous will be brought in, and Moonblast will be used. Dragonite actually getting KO'd here, as Tornadus is brought in. Enamorous is going to keep using Moonblast as the Choice Scarf is revealed. Gliscor now coming in as Tornadus opts for the Bleakwind Storm. Now we're going to see another Gliscor come in on Vadoom's side this time. Both sides will heal with Poison Heal. Here comes Enamorous, going to take a hefty chunk from those pesky pebbles. As we see Moonblast get used, and Gliscor will heal to full on Vadoom's side. Tornadus Therian now coming in to take a Moonblast. Moonblast will be doing a good chunk of damage, as the Enamorous will get KO'd on No Name's side. Corviknight coming in to the Tornadus. Tornadus is probably going to swap out here. Nope, instead it misses Heat Wave, and Corviknight gets the KO on the Tornadus. Here comes Enamorous. Dragonite coming in on the Enamorous, but No Name it predicting the Moonblast and getting it right. But breaking through this Gliscor is going to be the biggest issue, but if he doubles out right here, he could get it. He did not double it out. Definitely too risky to do that, though, so I don't blame him. But you do see a Sword Stance go through. A safe U-turn will allow Dragonite to get in onto the field. A Dragon Dance is used. Knockoff is used as well, and Heavy Duty Boots will be removed, but it may be too late for Vadoom, as now Enamorous is the only mon left. Moonblast will get the KO, but Corviknight may be too tanky for the Enamorous to deal with. And these default sets typically run Iron Head, I believe, so he should just be KO'd here. Yes, and that will be that. Well done by No Name on this game. Thank goodness both sides had the aggressive anti-flying Dragonite set. I was going to be very upset if we did not have that, but thankfully we did. And No Name definitely played this game very well, making sure to keep Vadoom on his toes and lower and just chip away at his team as quickly as possible. He just kept picking off Mons as he could, and it was just a very well played game by both sides, but No Name did play it better. So well done to him. Let's move on to the next match. As we see Log-Ice versus Silent Waltz. Log-Ice is opting for a fairy team, a lot of fairy this week, and Silent Waltz is opting for Ghost. Ghost with Frostlass lead, and Hisui and Zoroark. I believe we saw this team last week as well. And Log-Ice is going to opt for a not double watercolor, and this time the unusual mon he's bringing is Enamoris. Even though Enamoris isn't that unusual on fairy, but this tournament, I would say it's unusual. So let's see how this goes. We see Klefki lead into the Frostlass. Klefki instantly gets a Thunder Wave off on the Frostlass, which is going to be very obnoxious for Frostlass to deal with, as now Hatteran is able to completely wall it. You see Log-Ice go for with triple Axle coming through on Frostlass, as Log-Ice is opting to just let the spikes go up. As Frostlass gets parastunned again, Hatteran now coming in. The taunt going to be reflected onto the Frostlass, so even Destiny Bond cannot be used now. As the triple Axle will go through. Combine going to do quite a bit of work against Silent Waltz's team, especially with the singular spike down. Trick Room is going to be used as Frostlass is brought back out. A Cursed Body proc will cause great despair to our friend Log-Ice, as Combine is going to keep getting spammed. Triple Axle once again doing a decent chunk of damage. Here comes the Draining Kiss. Healing Hatteran just a tiny bit, and its disable ends, but also the Trick Room, meaning Sterilise can just do what it wants to the Hatteran, so we see a swap out into Azumarill. Azumarill will get attacked by its Citrus Berry, but now Sterilise cannot do that again, and also is at risk of dying from Aqua Jet, so the knockoff instead goes through on the Azumarill, and gets a big KO onto the Dragonite, or not Dragonite, Dragapult, as we see the Will-O-Wisp on Spectrier come through, and Shadow Ball will be used. A Grenade proc going to go off on the Spectrier as Fluttermane now comes in, Revenge killing the Spectrier. Ceruledge now coming in, looking to check the Fluttermane as Hatteran is instead put in. A crit going to probably not matter that much, as Blade Blade is used to finish off the Hatteran. Klefki is now going to be brought in, and Thunder Wave will be used. Sword Stance is used by Silent Waltz, as we see another Sword Stance get used by Silent Waltz as the Reflect goes up. Iron Valiant going to be an unlucky recipient of a Bitter Blade, as Enamoris now comes in. Mystical Fire going to lower the special attack of Ceruledge and also pop the balloon. And up the Paralysis coming in. Very clutch, allowing Enamoris to get that KO with Earth Power. Fluttermane. Which one was Fluttermane? Well, the first one was not Fluttermane, evidently. But, yeah. A Thunderbolt Para is going to give a little bit of a chance to our Hisui and Zoroark, as we do see the Sword Stand. So it does have access to, but unfortunately the Enamoris is able to move, and Log-Ice will take the victory. Two relatively underused types. Still viable types, but relatively underused types in this matchup. And as you can see, Ghost still falls just short of being able to completely overwhelm Log-Ice's team, especially with screens just blocking a lot of their damage. And Hatteran was not helping at all, constantly being a nuisance for Frostlass. So, yeah. Very unfortunate, but Log-Ice did play this very well, so the W does belong to him. Well played, let's move on to the next match. Matt and Mello versus Royal. I swear this matchup happened last week, but we do see Matt and Mello opting for a common dragon team. Well, not really that common, it has Como on it, so it's not common. Como and Dragonite. And Royal will be using a water team with Manaphy and Alumamola, as well as Walking Wake. So let's see how this goes. Not really a lot of comments to make about this matchup. I think water is not favored. Actually, no. Royal's team actually does pretty decently, because he does have Walking Wake as a Draco Meteor spammer that can just knock out any of the dragon types once Hisuian Gudra is weakened enough. But I'm not sure how this will go. So let's just see. Let me see. The instant lead of Walking Wake go through, Draco Meteor goes through, and Gudra will take 31%. Gudra not having leftovers healing, which means it either is Assault Vest or potentially something else. As the Heavy Duty Boots is removed from Toxapex. Toxic is used, but gets blocked perfectly by Archaludon as Kyurem is doubled in. Manaphy coming in, but getting baited out by the Kyurem, as Swampert will take the Freeze Dry, getting on 1 HP and also getting frozen. And Swampert will be KO'd, meaning no rocks for Royal. Hisuian Gudra once again swaps into the Draco Meteor from Walking Wake, as Walking Wake now on limited PP for the Draco Meteors at this point in the game. Manaphy is going to be dragged out, which is exactly what they wanted, as we're going to see a substitute from Royal come out. Freeze Dry will be used by Matt and Mella's Kyurem, as the Scald goes through. No burn. Freeze Dry goes through, and Psychic will be used. As we see the Draco Meteor getting the KO on Komo. Archaludon coming in. Lobobola is going to get hit by the Thunder Wave, as the Stealth Rock will go through as well. Flip Turn boosting the defense of Archaludon, but Toxapex will come in. Here comes Hisuian Gudra, tanking the Toxic. As Hisuian Samurott now makes an appearance, Life Dew is used. I had a feeling that that set was probably being used here. As oh, so that means it's not a Assault Vest. What item is that thing? I guess we'll see soon. As a Spike is put up, and Olomomola will tank the Body Press. Kyurem is now going to come in and take some Spikes damage, as Olomomola will Flip Turn out. Walking Wake now going to come in and probably collect a KO here with the Draco Meteor. Okay, so Gudra is Heavy Duty Boots. That is what it is. Okay. So, Hisuian Samurott now going to come out again. Dragon Tail going to force out the Hisuian Samurott, though, and unfortunately bring in the Big Demon, as Draco Meteor will go through. Heavy Duty Boots revealed on the Dragon Bolt. Let me just see how many Draco Meteor uses. We have 3 Dracos left. Not enough to sweep the team, but it should be enough to break a big enough hole to win this game. As we see the Earthquake go through, Toxic will be used on the Dragonite, as we are going to see a swap from Toxapex to Olomomola. Olomomola very easily tanking that Earthquake. And also not taking a ton from the Thunder Punch either. As we see the instant swap out into Toxapex. No electric immunity for the Thunder Punch is going to be very hard for Royal to deal with. But we will see the Olomomola come out again. Once again, eat the Thunder Punch. As the Wish will go through, will we get to see the Protect? No, unfortunately. He gets paralyzed. This is not great for Royal, as he needed those defensive mons to set up the rest of his win condition here. And it's going to be a bit hard to get Walking Wake to get the KOs it needs this match. Gonna see Kyurem instead. Ooh, the Kyurem bring out is actually huge here, because it gets rid of 1 Draco Meteor use. And it gets wasted on a miss! And now it is extremely hard for Royal to break through Matt and Mella's team, as Dragon Tail will be used to bring it back out. Are we going to see a Dragon Pulse? No, we see a Flamethrower instead, as the Life Dew means that it actually gets walled by this. And Life Dew has 16 uses, it doesn't have 8, so yes. The Life Dew will actually completely wall Royal from being able to do anything, but the Sacred Sword is going to get the KO onto Gudra. Gooey will go through though, which means he has to swap out. But the Sacred Sword should get the KO on Archaludon as well, so maybe Royal is fine. Body Press is used, not quite getting the KO on Walking Wake, as we are going to see the Flamethrower do quite a bit of damage to Archaludon, and Sacred Sword ignores defense boosts, so I believe Royal should win this game right here. And there you have it. The W for Royal. Very well played by both sides. Royal playing very aggressively and making good light of the hacks that he did receive this game. But yes, this water team is very well built. It was able to deal with Dragon just fine because of Walking Wake. But Matt and Mella too did play very well. That Kyurem sack at the end was a very, very good play, as getting rid of that last Dragon Meteor use could have definitely had a big impact on this game. Unfortunately, though, Sui and Samurott just has Sacred Sword, as they usually do, and it was just enough to KO. But it was definitely close, and that play definitely was what made that game potentially playable. Because it was either that, or he'd have to lose both Gudra and Archelodon, which is unideal. So, yeah. Well played to Matt and Mello too, but also well played to Royal and a very, very cool team as well. But let's see the next match, which will be Captain Kraken versus Scarfire. Scarfire opting for a relatively standard Dark team for this tournament, and Captain Kraken will be opting for a Garchomp Ground team. Cannot wait to see what happens here. As we see Great Tusk lead into the Tinglu from Scarfire. Tinglu being immediately swapped out for Mandibuzz as knockoff goes through. Heavy Duty Boots will not be removed, and Mandibuzz will have a harder time swapping in to the Stealth Rocks that Captain Kraken may or may not get on this game. Psyshock will instantly get the KO on Clodsire, as Captain Kraken is now going to be putting in Landorus Therian, or not Therian, Incarnate. U-Turn will be used, potentially revealing the Choice Scarf set, as the Icicle Crash on Mamoswine will go through and do a ton of damage to the Tingaloo. Not Choice Band damage, and Earthquake will get the subsequent KO. Hoopa now coming in, getting a Psyshock off. Scale Shot is going to be used by the Garchomp. Is the Garchomp loaded dice? Not sure. But we do know that is definitely walled by this Mandibuzz, so Captain Kraken will swap out into Hippowdon, who sets up the Sand. Mandibuzz is of course immune to the Sand because of Overcoat, which it always brings in Monotype. As Stealth Rock is put down on the field, Mandibuzz, is it Defog? We're not sure yet, but the Foul Play does get a huge KO onto the Mamoswine, getting rid of Mandibuzz, one of Mandibuzz's biggest threats, as the Foul Play does go through again. Rough Skin going to do a little bit of damage to Mandibuzz. As we see the Focus Blast connect, but unfortunately not do enough damage to threaten the Mandibuzz. As we see another Focus Blast get used, but once again, Mandibuzz will be able to easily wall this. Another Focus Blast is used. Captain Kraken, very risky play by trying to hit a bunch of Focus Blasts in a row, because this move is very notorious for its miss rate. As Mandibuzz keeps roosting off the Focus Blast. Captain Kraken just not missing these Focus Blasts as well. Fortunately getting toxic by the Mandibuzz though. So we see another Focus Blast get used. Mandibuzz's Roost BP definitely getting low. It's on one more Roost use, as we do see that Captain Kraken has used all of his Focus Blast uses, but now Mandibuzz, this guy hit 8 Focus Blasts in a row. Like, this guy is crazy. It might actually be luckier to hit 8 Focus Blasts in a row than to not miss a Focus Blast in all 8. It actually might be luckier, but yeah. Yeah, that was crazy. That was crazy about Captain Kraken. A true display of power there. But we are going to see Captain Kraken slowly get worn down. Mandibuzz cannot heal anymore, but Captain Kraken's team is getting worn down very slowly by the Toxic Poison. As we do see Hippowdon decide to heal itself with the Slack Off. Foul Play going to be used again. Rocky Helmet going to KO this time, as the Heavy Slam will connect onto nothing. How will Captain Kraken play out this late game, as the Meowscarada is on the field? Landorus could have Sludge Wave, so yeah. We're going to see a swap out, but does he read? He gets the read, and U-Turn will one-hit KO the Hoopa. Fortunately, he still has to get through the Sudian Samurott as well. Flower Trick going to connect onto the Great Tusk, but Great Tusk will not get KO'd, as the Body Press will... Oh, that crit may have mattered, as the Body Press will get the KO on Meowscarada. Sacred Sword being used, but not getting the KO on the Great Tusk. Great Tusk, very tanky. Actually, might potentially win this, as we do see... oh, without Focus Blast, yeah. Royal gets outsped, but he also gets outsped because the Roaring Moon is Choice Scarf, so yeah, unfortunate. But yeah. very huge display of power from Captain Kraken. Not afraid to hit 8 Focus Blasts in a row. That is genuinely crazy. But, yeah. Well played by him, but unfortunately Scarfire was able to still win the matchup due to getting rid of Clodsire extremely early and just the power of Meowscarada against ground in general. That being said though, Captain Kraken's team was definitely extremely well equipped to handle this team. It's just unfortunate Scarfire just played a little bit better and was able to get that victory. But yeah, well played to both sides, honestly. For our next match, we have Shucklegigas versus Dugza. Dugza is going to opt for a Hisuian Samurott water team with Walking Wake and Manaphy Alamamula, very similar to the team Royal just brought, as Shucklegigas will opt for... Is that ZU Fire? Oh my god. Okay, clearly this game did not matter. Otherwise Shucklegigas would not have brought this team, but let's just humor this and have a look at what happens here. As we see, Shucklegigas, see the eruption, 1% damage to the Walking Lake, who quad resists it. Scovillain now comes out as Toxapex comes in. Torkoal is going to be brought out. Sets up the sun as we see Charizard come in. Toxapex going to get that Toxic off. Solar Fire going to hurt Charizard, but Solar Beam will actually get a KO on the Manaphy. A crit hit. That actually might have mattered, because I think Charizard is just that weak, but Photosynthesis will give Walking Wake the speed boost it needs to spam Hydro Steam as many times as possible. We pray that Shucklegigas did not bring a Heat Rock, but it looks like he did, so he just loses. He just loses. Unfortunate. But yeah, it's funny to see this team, but unfortunately it will not win because Walking Wake is the biggest counter to Sunfire. So it is what it is sometimes, you know? But yeah. Probably the quickest match of this entire session. Let's just move on, because there's not really much to speak on here. We have VK versus Losco, and Losco will be opting for a Bug team, while VK is opting for a Water team with Primarina and Barraskewda. Looks like a solid Rain team with Ogerpon, Wellspring. Losco opting for relatively standard Bug team with Slitherwing. And yeah, that's pretty much all we have to say. Nothing too unusual by either side, but the sets could be interesting. I think the VK has the advantage here, because Bug doesn't really have a lot of tools to deal with the Rain spam. So once the Rain is set down, they don't really have a lot of ways to deal with Barraskewda just spamming Flip Turn or Liquidation. They do, however, have strong priority users that can force out Barraskewda. So it's going to become a game of who can outmaneuver who in this matchup. So let's see how this gets played. Kleavor is instantly led, probably expecting a Pelipper lead, but, you know, the rocks just go up. Moonblast is used, Kleavor goes down, and Primarina takes 65% for HP. Lokix is going to be brought in, as the knockoff will go through. Heavy Duty Boot's going to be removed from the Pelipper, but Volcarona will now be brought in as well. Hurricane going to get Volcarona extremely low, and also get a crit as well, as the Fiery Dance will go through. A boost will come to the aid of Volcarona, but how much will it aid is the question. As another Fiery Dance will go through, and another boost will go through as well. Hurricane being used again. It looks like Losco was just trying to stall out the Rain turns. Ooh, brutal dual Wing Beat miss. As we now see Barraskewda come in. Flip Turn is used, but without the Rain it does not OHKO, as Primarina will be sacrificed to the dual Wing Beat. Looks like Losco might also be choice banned here, so we do see Barraskewda come back out. Raffledet could actually swap into Barraskewda relatively easily. I can also low-key swap into, probably doesn't swap into Ogerpon that well, but we do see the Surf come through on the Araquanid. VK might need to be careful here, because if this Araquanid has a Mirror Coat, okay, never mind, he did not use Mirror Coat and he used Sticky Web instead. That's probably still good, because reducing the speed on Barraskewda could be very ideal. Actually, never mind, not for this team. But reducing the speed on Overpawn, however, is definitely good. As we do see the aforementioned Overpawn come out. And yeah, so Caesar is not choice banned, he was actually choice stance the entire time. As the Keldeo comes through, and is, unfortunately, heavy-duty boots, so Caesar could not outspeed it. And now we see low kicks come out. Low kicks might not be able to do much here. As we do see the sword stance come out from it, but Pelipper's item is already knocked off, so there's not much you can do. As the Hurricane will get the KO. Here comes Slitherwing. Slitherwing going to use close combat and get the KO on Pelipper, but unfortunately Barraskewda is just free to come in and do whatever it pleases here. Since Slitherwing, I believe, does not have Sucker Punch, so yeah. Liquidation will get the KO, and VK will get the win. Still pretty close, I would say. Because the webs and the rocks, as well as some decent play by Losco, could have made this a potentially easy victory, but unfortunately VK just played a little bit too well with the Pelipper maneuverability. So yeah. Also, dual wing beat miss was also really bad, because if he had gotten that earlier, he wouldn't have been able to set up the rain. Caesar hitting that could actually have put Pelipper at a low enough HP that couldn't come back in with Stealth Rock, because remember, his heavy duty boots were removed very early into the game, so that dual wing beat miss probably mattered way too much for this match, so that's a very unfortunate hex for Losco. But with that being said, it was still close considering that, so well played to him, but also well played to VK for winning this game. Alright, let's move on to Quilly versus Maki. Quilly is opting for an electric team, the same electric team we saw before, and Maki is opting for flying with Galarian Zapdos. So, on paper, Electric should easily win this matchup. However, Gliscor completely blanks 90% of the Pokemon on this team, so it's going to be kind of hard for them to deal with, because as we know, if this is the same team from last time, we know for sure that the Thundurus is walled by Gliscor. Rotom might not get walled by Gliscor. Magnezone gets walled by Gliscor. There's a chance that if this thing is Sugar Berry like the last team, there's a chance that Raging Bolt is also walled by the Gliscor. Although it can take a Earthquake relatively well, so maybe it might be able to do something with that, but yeah, no. Electric is gonna have fun trying to break through this Gliscor and the rest of its teammates, so here comes Raging Bolt, as mentioned before. Earthquake and a Sugar Berry coming through, so yeah, it's probably the exact same team, as we do see a Thunderbolt go through instead of a Draco Meteor. Subsequent Earthquake gonna bring Raging Bolt to lower HP, and Gliscor survives on 6% HP. Raikou is going to get the Scald buff, and yeah, that was the other move. I knew it had Scald, but I didn't want to say anything yet, so Thunderbolt is going to go through, though. As Galarian Zapdos will fall. Here comes Dragonite. The extreme speed coming through, but only doing 30% to Iron Hands, as we see Skarmory come in. Ice Punch getting very little damage off, as the Rocky Helmet will do a lot of damage to Quilly's Iron Hands, as we see the Thunderbolt come through and get the KO on Skarmory. Unfortunately, Gliscor is at too low of an HP to switch into Raikou, so Quilly is actually able to do whatever the hell he wants here. As we see Dragonite Extreme Speed into the Magnezone. Are we going to see a... Okay, and unfortunately Maki swaps in their Steel type into the known Steel Trapper, as Magnezone will easily get the KO on this... Oh, nope, instead we see a Flash Cannon go through. Wonder if this one is Specs instead, as we see the Rotom Wash come in to the Gliscor. Gliscor healing a lot of his HP back just with Poison Heal. Protect gonna come through, as we see the substitute read immediately. A lot of people getting this read correct. Oh, and this is the stored power set. So actually, technically, no. Rotom still gets walled by Gliscor. Or no, Rotom beats Gliscor still. Sorry, but yeah, Outrage is going to come through by Monkey, and Rotom is actually not going to be able to kill Dragonite here unless he gets a lucky Confusion proc. So let's see if he gets it. The Hydro Pump misses. And Dragonite still uses Outrage and even gets a crit. It's unfortunate. But we are going to see the Thundurus get its bulk up off. As now, Dragonite decides to hit itself, and Knockoff will seal the deal for Monkeys. Dragonite Thunder Punch is now used, and Thundurus will get the KO on Enamorus, and that will be that. Another W for Electric. But yes, as you saw, if it weren't for Raging Bolt getting Gliscor to literally 6% HP, that game would have been extremely difficult. Because even with Gliscor at that low HP, Electric was still having a little bit of trouble breaking through the defensive core. Which shouldn't be that hard because it's Electric, but yeah, it just be like that sometimes. So yeah, with that being said, Quilly did play this well, so well played to him. And it is still an advantageous matchup, don't get me wrong, but it is very possible to lose. But yeah, well played to both sides. And let's move on to the second to last match, which will be Cielo Origin and LBN. Cielo will be using a Steel team with double Iron Birds, while LBN will opt for a Fighting team. Now, Steel versus Fighting is... historically, it's been a really easy matchup for Fighting, since it's always had good mons to deal with all of Steel's mons. Even when Aegislash was in the tier, we were able to deal with that thing as well. So Gholdengo is a little bit different, since it's also actually a threat. But depending on how LBN plays this, Gholdengo will either be a non-issue or a minor annoyance. But the double Iron Birds definitely makes this matchup a bit more difficult. So this could still be won by Cielo Origin, but we shall see. Alright, Gallade is led into the Gholdengo as the knockoff instantly get removes Skarmory's Rocky Helmet. Sacred Sword is going to be used and bringing Skarmory to 40% HP. Skarmory is going to roost on that turn, as Gallade will opt for another Sacred Sword. Spikes are now going to go down, as Iron Hands swaps in. Roost is going to be used and bring it to 99% HP. And now Body Press will be used as well, as the Thunder Punch only does a 43%. Cielo still opting to press Body Press multiple times, as we do see Skarmory finally fall to the Thunder Punch from Iron Hands. Here comes Gholdengo with a Psy Shock to knock out the Iron Hands and get through that special bulk. As we see Great Tusk now come in to get the Revenge kill. Arkeldon swapping in and getting a Stamina boost, guaranteeing its survival on the next one. And it might also survive the next one too. As we see the Draco Meteor come through. Tragically not getting the KO on Great Tusk, but the Earthquakes will finally get Arkeldon to fall, as Iron Treads comes in and finishes off the Great Tusk. Both sides even right now in terms of Mon count, but LBN will be getting Urshifu into the field, and Iron Treads will fall here. Cielo Origin not really having a lot of options for Urshifu here, as we are going to see the Aqua Jet. LBN definitely assuming that it is going to be a Choice Scarf. Ooh, and a Brutal. That actually is going to matter so much, as the burn will finish it off. Iron Valiant will come in, as a good Thunderbolt read by LBN will put Cielo on the back foot. As if this Iron Valiant is Choice Scarf, that means that Gordite can't really do anything. So the crit doesn't really matter, as Heatran now comes in. Alright, the Iron Valiant is actually not Choice Scarf, since Choice Scarf Iron Valiant would never get outsped by Choice Scarf Heatran. So we are going to see the subsequent Thunderbolt get Gholdengo down to low HP, and Gallade is going to be able to get the KO with either knockoff or... Oh, never mind, I spoke too soon. I thought Gallade would be able to tank that, but apparently not. U-turn got used? Oh. Oh. And here I thought Galley would actually be able to tank that Shadow Ball. My mistake. My mistake. I genuinely thought that Galley would be able to tank that Shadow Ball, but it did not. That is very unfortunate. I'm very curious to know if Shadow Sneak doesn't kill there. It probably doesn't, which is why he didn't click it, but yeah, that's weird. Yeah, very unfortunate. I actually thought LBN had this in the bag, but apparently not. Oh yeah, I guess Goldenko was a bit more than a minor nuisance this game. And actually ended up winning the game outright, but yeah. Yeah, double Iron Birds will do that to you, because it makes it very difficult for fighting to do what it needs to do. And yeah, Sneasler is kind of just super walled by Goldenko, since Dire Claw and Close Combat both don't do anything to it, and I assume LBN is probably switcheroo on Sneasler as well to help deal with fatter teams, so he doesn't have Throat Chop, which is probably the move that would have saved him this game, but unfortunately he does not have it. And Trick doesn't do anything to Goldenko because of good as gold, so yeah, very sad, very sad. But well played Cielo Origin for holding his head up high and not faltering in the face of adversity, so well done to them. Let's move on to our final match, which will be Neko versus Ethereal Sword. So unfortunately I had this match spoiled to me, but I will try to say what I need to say in a non-biased manner. We have Ethereal Sword bringing his signature Fezandipity, and Alola... Ooh, I actually really like Ethereal Sword's team here, because I love using Alola Ninetales on the Fairy, because it's a one-turn screen setup as opposed to Kleski's two-turn screen setup, and anyone who knows competitive Pokemon knows that saving turns is always a massive buff, especially since Aurora Veil is just really good. But yeah, cannot wait to see how Alola Ninetales gets to do stuff this game, because it actually is a very good pick into Dragon specifically. And Neko is one of the few people actually using Raging Bolt this entire tournament. Very crazy. And we're seeing it at the literal end of playoffs. Cannot wait to see what happens this match. But yeah, I will explain whatever Fezandipity does later. As we see, Arcaludon immediately gets swapped out for Sui and Gudra. Sui and Gudra is going to tank it pretty easily, but Tinkaton is going to come in and steal the leftovers from Hisui and Gudra. So now Hisui and Gudra has absolutely zero healing, which is very bad for it in a longer game. As we see the knockoff go through and get rid of Sarah Ledge's leftover. I said Sarah Ledge, I'm messing up everything today, but I meant to say Arcaludon's leftovers get removed, and now it gets encored into Stealth Rock, which allows our friend Tinkaton to get a Tinkaton Hammer off on the Raging Bolt, and that Fezandipity just took a massive Thunderbolt from the Raging Bolt, and almost with ease, I would say. As the U-turn goes through, Fluttermane coming back out, as we see the Moonblast get a free KO onto the Hydreigon. Sui and Gudra coming out to try and force out the Fluttermane, as Tinkaton will now come in. Heavy Slam, not really doing much to Tinkaton. As we see Arcaludon come out. Tinkaton Hammer, not going to do that much to Arcaludon, and will give it a defense boost. Tinkaton healing quite a bit from its leftovers, as now we see the... Ooh, and a dodge on the Thunder Wave is going to make this very brutal, as the Blizzard KOs the Arcaludon. And now we see Dragapult come in. Phantom Force is used. Wait. I thought that didn't work like that. Huh, that's interesting. I thought when you used Blizzard in Weather, it didn't make it so that... I thought it made it so that it didn't check accuracy anymore. That's weird. I definitely thought Blizzard would still check accuracy. Or not check accuracy if it was used in Hail. But apparently it doesn't? That's weird. I thought that was how that normally worked. But yeah, sorry, that distracted me from the rest of the game. But yeah, Neko was just in a really bad spot after that because Flurry could just kind of wreck the rest of its mons, the rest of her mons, and Pheasant Divinity is just able to easily tank any hit that Raging Bolt can dish out. Pheasant Divinity actually a very good pick here against this team, since all of Dragon's special attackers kind of get super walled by Pheasant Divinity. Because not a lot of them can break through it very easily. But yeah. Well done to Ethereal Sword. Love the Pheasant Divinity team. And that will do it for our matches today. So next week is going to be semifinals. I will do a little breakdown of how I feel about the meta and do a quick little metagame review before we talk about semifinals. Semifinals are going to be over by the time I release that video, but I'll still talk about the stuff there, and then the video for semifinals will come out later. But yeah, can't wait to do that video, and I can't wait to also talk about the finals. I'm not sure if I will be able to get a guest for the finals. I would optimally like to get that. Maybe we can get Fetchbay again, or maybe we can get someone else. I'm not sure, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see who is going to be at the finals. But yeah, that will be that. I will see you guys in the next video, and have a wonderful, wonderful week.